So we are doing family info session for study abroad, and I'm really excited. We've got a really great room, a big audience, I'm sorry. So I'm really excited about that. And I want to get to everything that we have on our agenda today. A little bit of housekeeping. If you have questions as we go along, please drop them in the chat box, and we will leave plenty of time. We have scheduled a lot of time at the end for you to be able to ask all your questions. It's very important to me that we're answering the questions that you have. And so please, as we go along, drop them in the chat. And then at the end, we'll definitely have time. We're going to do introductions of myself and the panel. I'll be talking a little bit about the basics of study abroad. It's a very similar presentation that your students would have received if they came to one of our Study Abroad 101 info sessions. We'll cover things like the benefits, how to get started on study abroad. A big question is always about funding and financing for study abroad. I think you're going to hear some good news though. We'll talk a little bit about culture shock and support. And then again, it's so important to us that we answer the questions that you have. So please do use that chat box as we go along to put in any questions that you think of. And with that, I'm going to have my panelists introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming and joining us tonight. My name is Harmony DeFazio, and I am a multiple study abroad alumna, a parent of a small child who has not yet studied abroad, but I tell him regularly, it's not if, it's when, my dear. And I am also the executive director of the Study Abroad office here at the University of Arizona. So I'm delighted to spend this next little bit of time with you, and I hope that we are able to answer all of your burning questions. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you, Harmony. Next.
Hi, everyone. I'm Diane Nelson, and I'm one of the associate directors here in Study Abroad. And though I didn't get a chance to study abroad in college way back in the day, my three daughters are all Wildcats here. And you'll see a picture of my two older ones had the special chance to study abroad together in Northern Europe. And yeah, I made up for my lack of a study abroad experience by lots of travel since then. So happy to be here tonight.
Wonderful. Thank you, Diane. And I'll just point out the photo of the three guys sitting around on their phones in Italy there. Diane submitted that as part of a staff photo contest, and that was my favorite photo. The old and new, the colors, just a wonderful photo, Diane. And thank you for being here. And next we have.
It's me. Hello, everybody. My name is Lindsay Downs. I'm an associate director in the office as well. I am also an alumna of Study Abroad myself. I spent a year in England as an undergraduate student and also loved it so much. I was like, I got to do it again. And I spent a semester in Ireland a little bit later too, and, as part of my undergraduate degree. And then when I've been around the office since 2003. So I go back a little ways. Harmony and I have both been here for a really long time and are so happy to see the other side of this a little bit on the parent side, because I'm a parent too, and just am waiting for my kids to start studying abroad too. I have a ways to go though too, just like Harmony. But yeah, I'm very glad you're here and look forward to answering your questions a little bit later. So thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you, Lindsay. And I'll introduce myself. I'm Jacob Evis. I am the study abroad recruiter here at U of A. I love this job. It's my job and my goal to get out there on campus and make sure that as many students as possible at least know that we're here, that study abroad is an opportunity that they can explore as part of their degree at the University of Arizona. I did my study abroad semester in Australia, studying political science, and had an absolutely amazing time. Australia is just a wonderful country, and could be in the future a destination that maybe your students are exploring as well. And it is also my very distinct honor to introduce our final panelist here tonight, my own mother, Marilyn Poirier. Mom, you're muted.
Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. And I know this is probably a scary time for all of you thinking about, your kid going abroad, but we're here to ease your mind about this. So welcome. And I hope that we can make you feel comfortable about this in all ways. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, you're very welcome. Yeah. And Marilyn, or my mom, this is going to be a little weird. I apologize. Distinct areas that are very important to our conversation today. She herself was a study abroad advisor, like the rest of my colleagues here and myself. And she did study abroad to the Philippines and Mexico and sent a child on study abroad. So we figured who better than somebody like that who has the 3 areas to help answer questions and kind of give their perspective. So thank you again to my panelists for being here. I'll say again, if you have questions as we go along for myself or for our panelists, drop them in the chat box. So one of the questions that we know is on a lot of people's minds. I talk to students all day long about the goals and benefits of study abroad. What is study abroad? And certainly it is a unique opportunity for U of A students. I always phrase it in terms of a coin, right? So to me, study abroad is a 2-sided coin. It's an academic adventure, right? It is an academic pursuit. And so study, that's why it's the first side of the coin. But it is also about being abroad and getting out in the world, growing as an individual, learning a new perspective on your academic field of study or just on life. And we want to make sure that your students have a balanced experience, that the academics that they take count towards their degree. We are not trying to delay graduation. We're not trying to create 5th-year seniors. They shouldn't be punished for wanting to do study abroad. So our goal is that everybody can fit this within a 4-year plan as best as they can. As I said, it is an academic pursuit. In fact, there are opportunities to go abroad and get ahead. You could actually go out in the summer and take extra credits and really get ahead in your studies. So study abroad not only won't delay you, but could actually jump you forward. We ask students to think about both the personal and professional goals that they have in mind. I always talk to students just about defining goals to help them through the entire process. What my panelists know and what I know is there's a lot of ups and downs. And it starts the day that they say, I'm interested in study abroad. And it goes all the way to beyond coming back from their trip. It will be ups and downs. And we will talk towards the end of this presentation about cultural adjustment, or some people call it culture shock. And so we'll kind of go through that. But to me, it's important to set those goals to help students through that up and down piece, to always remind them why they're doing it, why they're pursuing study abroad. But ultimately, this is a professional endeavor too. It helps enhance resumes, build a global network. And what we've experienced and what I've experienced personally working with students is it opens up the potential beyond graduation from U of A with an undergraduate, graduate school, international job markets. All of these things become more real or more possible for students. And so going on study abroad just has an immense number of benefits. I'd be curious from our panelists, if you had to name one benefit that maybe you've seen in your children, or one benefit you've seen in advising students, if you guys have any good ones that you would toss out there. And I'll leave it open to anybody who wants to answer.
I can just go quickly that for, I think my 2, they hadn't never been abroad, and there was some anxiety with it. Their first night going, the plane was delayed. They got stuck in Philadelphia in the middle of the night. I mean, right from the get-go, but coming back, they are so adaptable now. They just go with the flow. And so I think that's the most enriching pieces of it, aside from the culture part. So yeah, just being able to navigate and to be adaptable.
Well, for me, as a study abroad advisor and studying abroad myself, I think the hardest part for me was when my son went abroad. It was the scariest thing. It wasn't scary for him, or he didn't show it too much, but I was a wreck, and I had been doing this for, at that point, probably 15 years. And so, yes, it was very hard. Before that, I'd been so cavalier with parents and said, oh, let your kid go. But when my kid went, it was really tough. But the benefits outweighed all the things that I was scared of for him. And now look, he's in the business.
That's right. That's absolutely right. And I'll throw out there a quick professional benefit is we study abroad alumni when they come back. We have a team of study abroad peer advisors that work here in our office. They're finishing out their degrees after returning from overseas. And they take that experience, that knowledge, and they help the next generation of study abroad students get out on their own journeys. And we are always looking for new students to come in and join our peer advisor team. And so that's just a great immediate job opportunity that they could explore when they get back.
Jacob, can I still
Yes,
jump
Harmony,
in and
please.
say, I want to just throw in that for me personally, when I studied abroad, one of the biggest benefits was about confidence and independence. I had never gotten on a plane by myself before. I had flown. It wasn't my first time flying, but it was my first time flying alone. And I made the decision to go without really thinking about the fact that that meant not only was I going to have to fly by myself for the first time, but I was going to fly like halfway around the world. And that moment of like getting on the plane and going, all right, I just got to roll with this. That's seemingly small step was really transformative for me, because it really opened up the doors of, what happens when you just allow for that independence and that confidence to just kind of dive into a situation. So I wanted to just add that to the list of benefits.
Yeah, no, Harmony, thank you. Just earlier in our packing and planning session, I was talking to students about how when I went to Australia, it was the first time I opened a bank account on my own. I had a US-based bank account, but mom had helped me open that up. And then I was in Australia long enough that I felt that it was just smart and it was going to save me money to have a bank account there. It was the first time I'd ever walked into a bank on my own and set it up. So certainly your students too will gain new skills and new confidence, new levels of confidence and independence. So yeah, I really appreciate that.
Hey, Jacob, can I add in something? So when I studied abroad in the Philippines, I came back and I begged the director of the international office to hire me. It changed my whole world. I got a job from it, it changed my world. And I came back and I said, I'll take any position in this office. And so I started out part-time and worked my way up, and it has been my whole life since I made that one step of going abroad and then going to the Philippines on a health project. It was the scariest thing that I had ever done, but coming back, the confidence I had, and it changed my life. It made a career for me.
Nice, wonderful. So I want to move us along a little bit so we have time to get to the question and answer session. But one thing I did want to highlight for you all is kind of the journey that your students would be going on. And just briefly, this is definitely taking some liberties. There's several steps, like sub-steps within each of these, but that's what we're here for. That's one of the resources that your students have. But it really starts with just interest in study abroad. And with enough advanced planning, students really can shape their own experience. And when I talk to students, especially first-year students who are just starting out thinking about this, I really do ask them to dream big, because my hope is that by doing that, we can really match up their dreams with a reality. And, you know, hopefully students can go on study abroad to a bucket list place to go. But it really is important to do a lot of advanced planning, you know, working with all the resources that I'm going to highlight here coming up that we have on campus. But really doing that research, right? Looking into our programs, coming and talking to one of our peer advisors, that's an excellent place to start. You know, just learning about the experience from other students. You know, my colleagues, I think, will agree with me that even as exciting as it is talking about study abroad with us, when they're talking about it with a student who just returned, that excitement level goes through the roof. They can really see themselves overseas at that point. And so I really do encourage students to utilize our peer advisors. They're on hand here at our Global Center, and they can schedule appointments with them or drop in, you know, just with quick questions, or even getting applications started. So once they've selected a program, then it's time to apply. They'll work with one of our study abroad coordinators at that point, who will help them through that entire application process, really dial down into the details of what their program entails, you know, what kind of academics they're going to get while they're on that program. So a lot goes into that application process. Though this is where I'm going to take a moment and plug passports. One thing that we've been experiencing lately is a huge backlog in passport processing through the US government. Optimistically, our passport office here at the Global Center is saying 12 weeks. And that, I think that could be even a little optimistic, honestly. But if your student is interested in study abroad and they don't have a passport, or they need to renew an old passport, they should be doing that next week. Like really, even if your student is thinking of going out sophomore or junior year and you think, oh, I've got time, that is just one piece of stress you do not want. And you don't need your passport to open your application, but certainly you need it to keep moving forward. And remember, or one thing to note is that a lot of countries are looking for passports to be valid 6 months beyond when they get back to the US, right? So it's not just that it's valid through their trip alone, but for some time after that. And that is, again, something our coordinators will help with. But I just wanted to make sure I said that about passports, because we are seeing very delayed processing times right now. Once students have moved through the application process, the excitement of getting that acceptance email, you know, starting to prepare for that trip, one of the big things that we do as an office is provide pre-departure orientation, where we really dial into preparing your students to be studying and living and traveling overseas. And that'll be specific to the student's semester or summer that they're going out, and in some cases even specific to their program. Diane, Harmony, Lindsay, I wonder if you have any advice when it comes, this pre-departure point piece is very important. And I know there's a lot of information presented in those, but what's like one key takeaway from pre-departure that you would want our audience to know today for their students to be looking out for when they get to that point?
My personal experience, my oldest daughter has a peanut allergy, so be very mindful of any medications that you might need to be sure there are things that you have enough of to get through the trip. Not all medications can be filled abroad. So that's the big piece I would add.
Yep, and we always cover health and safety. That's one of the big pieces of our pre-departure orientation. Okay, Harmony, Lindsay, anything to offer there?
Sure, I would say one of the topics that we spend some time on is sort of money matters, how to navigate taking money with you, accessing money, currents, exchanging money, all of those sorts of things that are kind of core to the day-to-day sort of transactional nature of just living anywhere, but that's second nature to us here in the US. But you kind of have to think about, like, you know, how are you going to access your bank account when you're in another country, things like that. So that's another topic that we cover.
Yeah, the only thing else I would add, like when I'm thinking about my own personal experience, it was helpful for me to have, when I was preparing to leave was to make and bring with me a list of contact information, like that you just want to make sure you have, you know, who you need to reach out to should things come up that you need help with. And they'll reach out to you for sure first, but maybe that would be like a reason to leave that contact information with you too, you know, to have the student do that for you as parents. And so that was kind of nice for me. I mean, always the first point of contact is their study abroad coordinator. Usually there's always something that your son or daughter's coordinator can help with on that. So that was, I remember that being the big takeaway for me when I was a student, just having the contact information that I needed. Yeah. Everything else, like when you're going through that pre-departure information, it's a lot of information. And so also, I think one of the things that we've done that's nice is making that information available at any time. And so students can return to that. And you as parents can have access to that as well. So you can see what information we're providing.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's great. Well, after pre-departure, then it's abroad, right? It's flying out, going overseas on whatever that is. The one note here, of course, is we really, we put language in the application, but, students really should wait till they get the approval, like to go, right? Before purchasing plane tickets, like they want to confirm that, that they've been accepted. And especially for some of our like summer faculty-led programs, really waiting until they have final confirmation that the trip's a go and that they're a go, they've been accepted to purchase that plane ticket. But that will be made very clear to them as part of their application process. And then one thing that students I know they're wanting to get abroad. That's the end goal for them. And I think sometimes they don't, I certainly didn't think about this, like the return, right? Coming back, but returning is a huge part of study abroad. And that is usually where students realize everything that has changed, right? For themselves, for the world as they see it around them. And you too, you as their family and friends, you've changed, right? They've been gone and you've led lives as well. And so this return process, it can be a little difficult on some students. Certainly, we see that regular enough. And I went through this myself coming back to the United States from Australia. I can tell you that landing in LA and then trying to drive across LA at rush hour traffic is not the best way to come back to the United States after 5 months abroad. That was bad news for me. Unavoidable. I kind of knew that was coming, but that was just my own personal experience. But definitely as parents and family members, something you should be thinking about too. When your students are back, they're going to be changed, and they're going to want they're going to need you there, right? And we're here as a resource for that as well. These are some of the things. I'm not going to go through all of these points one by one, but I wanted you to see the considerations that we talk to your students about. And these are the kinds of things that we are here as a resource for. These are the conversations that they can be having with their academic advisor. I always tell students that I'm talking to, if you haven't told your academic advisor that you want to do study abroad, then you absolutely should do that. The academic advisor can be a huge resource and a huge ally in this whole process. And will be involved in the application process to some extent, actually to a great extent in a lot of ways. So I talked about peer advisors, our financial aid office. We're going to get to the finance stuff here in just a second, but they're a good resource. But there are a lot of resources here on campus. Just like your students won't be going it alone on study abroad, they don't have to go it alone in researching and finding an opportunity that's going to work well for them. We have a really great page that I think is great for everybody to use. I'm going to drop a link to it here. It's our Start Your Journey page. If you get an opportunity to check that out, I'm really pleased with it. I think it's a good resource for students and for parents, but definitely something that's worth checking out even for our audience tonight. So this is one of the big ones, is financing and funding of study abroad. And this is this is huge, right? For me, in one of our earlier sessions today, I was telling students that when it came to study abroad was really the first time that I had to take control of a budget and plan money, right? And I didn't do it as well as I probably could have, right? But this is one of those times. So so there's good news for financing study abroad. Our programs, our U of A programs, if you're going out on a semester program or a year-long program, you are paying U of A tuition for those programs. Now there is a caveat there for some of our faculty-led programs I'll get to, or for our faculty-led programs. But for our semester and year-long programs, you're paying the same tuition, which means you can use all of your institutional financial aid and merit scholarships. So, so that can be a huge benefit to students who are thinking about a semester-long program. And there's also grants and loans, like those can be used as well. There are some additional costs, and I will say that all of our programs have a budget mapped out for them. And part of that budget shows your students what will be billed to their student account and what will be billed or what they will pay out of pocket. Okay, we try and make that as clear and as transparent as possible. And so every student will see that as part of their application process. Now, again, I will note that we are here covered by FERPA, which is the federal regulation regarding the the privacy of student records. So there is limits to what we can discuss with you as the parents and family members, as opposed to what we can discuss with the students. So just one thing to note as you're navigating all of this, college life in general or study abroad. When it comes to our summer programs, the cost for program will vary, and it'll vary program to program, country to country. One thing to note, though, is that normal financial aid and merit scholarships don't apply for summer here, and so they wouldn't work for summer on study abroad either. But there are scholarship opportunities, grant opportunities out there. The one piece of advice I give students, and I'll give you in case they haven't heard it from me, is talk to their department, right? Departments regularly have funds. They might be small dollar, just a couple $100 maybe, but they should ask, right? There's nothing wrong in asking if there's money out there. Student travel grants, like professional development grants. I've seen them named all sorts of ways. But a number of our big partners in the colleges, they do have scholarship opportunities that they publish on their websites. So another good reason for your students to be talking to their academic advisors. These are some big dollar scholarships that I really want to make sure that we highlight. We do have a scholarship tracker that students can use on the page that I shared, the Start Your Journey. You can find it through there. We have a budget guide as well. Students can print that out and use it as a guide as they plan their budget. For any students that are Pell Grant eligible, there's the Gilman Scholarship. And this can be up to $5,000 for a semester. And a really cool statistic, 1 in 3 U of A students who apply get it. So this isn't a shot in the dark program or opportunity. This is definitely something our students are applying for and getting. And another big one that I like to recommend is the Fund for Education Abroad. Okay, culture shock. Ooh, we deal with culture shock all the time. And this is a big part of our pre-departure orientation too, kind of preparing students for what they're going to go through. And it really is an up and down, even for our shorter term programs, right? I think that this happens to a student no matter what study abroad program that they are on. It'll happen in big ways and it'll happen in small ways. The thing that we tell students is be patient with yourself, take the time to breathe, to take in your surroundings, and really engage in that culture. I'd be curious from our panelists if they have any quick tips or advice for navigating culture shock, navigating, homesickness is something that we hear a lot from students as well. Anything that you've given out to students you've advised in the past that you'd pass on to our audience tonight?
I think what I always tried to communicate was just be open and willing to go with the flow a little bit. And that might be out of people's comfort zone a little bit, but just be open to anything new that comes your way and willing to jump in. And that helped me a lot, where I just was like, okay, I need to just, I'm so vastly uncomfortable right now, but I'm just gonna go with it because I'm here and this is what I'm here to do. And that was honestly the best thing I could do, is just the flexibility and openness.
I would just add that it's, this is normal. So you're not alone. You're not the only one feeling the way that you're feeling, right? Like, so making sure that the students understand that this process of sort of ups and downs, because really that's what it looks like. There's like, highs and lows throughout the experience, and that is normal, and your student will not be alone in those feelings and that experience.
One thing I notice, I advise students to Spanish-speaking countries and also to English-speaking countries. And a lot of times that students that went to English-speaking countries did not think that they were going to have a cultural shock. And they were typically the ones that had it the hardest. I think that when you're studying a foreign language and you know how difficult it is, and you do study the culture too when you're studying a foreign language. I think people are a little bit more prepared. Students are a little bit more prepared for that when they are studying a foreign language, but when they go to a country, say like Jacob did to Australia, it's not immediately in your face, the cultural shock, but little by little and day by day, you realize what the differences are. So be prepared for that. English-speaking countries and the students that went to that typically weren't really expecting it. So be prepared for it.
And it's not just like, you think we talk a lot about culture, and that can be, I think that people think that's one thing. There's also a whole new academic culture that your students will be navigating too. This was something that I personally had a challenge, was very challenging to me. As my mom said, going to an English speaking country, I didn't think there'd be much of a culture shock. And for me, it was related to the academic expectations of students in Australia as compared to what I was used to here in the United States. It's just a very different way of operating. My personal story is that my classes in Australia did not have weekly assignments or homework. And this is kind of a common experience for study abroad students, actually, is that you find that your grades are dependent on much fewer items, right? Maybe just a handful of exams or presentations. And so some students can find, some students find freedom in that. Some students find challenge in that. I was challenged at first, but then, as I kept going, kept pushing, it got a lot better. And then I adjusted, and then all of a sudden, here I was back in the United States and adjusting again to a new, or relearning the American way of doing it. So, and not to say that one is better or worse than the other, it's just that they're very different. And so reverse culture shock is a thing. It really does happen. And I think that you will see that in your students, and they may not share that with you. I wasn't always an open book. And so, but this is something that you should be looking out for, and that we are here too as a resource to help. We've all traveled, we've been on study abroad. We've been through this ourselves. And so, I always love, talking with students and sharing stories and, really giving them a safe space to kind of process through that. But definitely something that you should look out for, and just be aware of the new changes and that your student will be going through. I want to make sure we get to all the questions. I know there's been questions in the chat box. Thank you to my panelists for getting answers out to those. We are wrapping up our Fair Week tonight. So this is our last information session. I will point out that information sessions that we had earlier in the week, we have recordings of them. We will be posting up on our website for students to go back and review, or if you want to check them out yourself, you certainly can do that. And so, and those will be on our fair page and also on our YouTube page here really soon. We are having a giveaway for this fair week. So students have had a chance to enter into a scholarship giveaway for study abroad. We're doing an event here tonight where students can enter. So I think we're gonna have a really good event. They're setting up right now. It looks really great out there on the lawn. So I'm excited about that. But now I want to make sure that, again, that we're answering questions that you have. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen so you can all see us maybe a little more better. I think we've got all the questions answered here. To my panelists, Lindsay, Harmony, Diane, were there any questions that you thought were super important to read out loud and get answers for?
I was chatting with one parent just about understanding the type of support a student will have going abroad, particularly at one of our exchanges or an Arizona abroad location, which is different than what Jacob had talked about as a faculty-led program where students are traveling as a cohort together with U of A faculty. And so just to assure all of you, we have very comprehensive agreements with our partners that are on the ground that verify vetting for homestays or whatever their accommodations might be, their emergency response plans, and providing on the ground support for the students while they're abroad. And of course, we're here as resources for them as well.
I just wanted to let everybody know that there was a question that came in that I thought was a good one. It kind of reminded me of what the difference is between our program types. And so I'm not sure if you actually got talking about this, Jacob, but I put a link in the chat box to our family page on our website, which does have some information about the kinds of programs that we have, the difference between, for example, Arizona abroad locations and exchange programs and faculty-led. And so you may have heard those terms kind of thrown around a little bit. And so I wanted to let you know that I put that link in there. And so that is available if you'd like to go take a look around.
Yeah. Thank you for posting that. Yeah. Excellent. So I wanted to, please, if you have more questions, drop them in the chat box. I've seen some good ones come in there. When it comes to, preparing students to travel overseas, that can be, you've sent your students off to college. So maybe you've gone through this, or maybe you're local to Tucson. And so that moving away or going away was a little bit shorter distance. Maybe some of our parents are on the East Coast. And so you've sent them all the way across the country here. But for our panelists, I'd be curious if you have advice, as parents, preparing for your students to be that far away. And for, I know Diane, your students did this, and Mom, of course, yours did. Lindsay and Harmony, you're thinking about it for the future. But yeah, Diane or Mom, any advice for preparing for sending their students out there into the world so far away?
Well, Diane, you go first.
Well, I could only share probably a little bit of the flip side of what you experienced, Marilyn. And I was pretty anxious. I was pushing my kids out the door, like, go abroad, you have to go, you have to have this experience. I was
go, but don't go.
Yes. So, I mean, and certainly I was, oh my goodness, they're so far away, but I knew they were in good hands. And it was nice that they had each other. That's not the usual opportunity, I know. Yeah, I guess financially it's a big consideration, right? It's not inexpensive, but there are funding available. And personally, as a parent, I thought it important that they also had some financial investment in the program. So it wasn't kind of, oh, mom and dad writing the ticket or having everybody pay for them. They earned a significant portion of their program expenses as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, I know for the parents, I want you to realize that, the study abroad people are working with the study abroad people abroad, so that, I had a relationship with the study abroad advisor, say in Mexico or Australia, so that there was always someone that, if you called me, that I could be in contact with. So the safety part, these people are professionals. They know what they're doing. We all had, and I'm sure at U of A, you do too, you work daily with the people abroad. So that was made me feel safe. But I did worry about just crazy things, and you probably will too. I was telling Jacob, I worried about the fact that, is he going to walk up to the street corner and look the wrong way and, step out because, of the traffic? It was just things like that. And it was such a daunting semester for me because I was sending my kid abroad. I was sending his best friend abroad with him. I had a dean's kid that same semester and a provost. So the pressure was on. So it was, but like I say, I wouldn't have changed it. And there were a few bumps in the road, but I did love the outcome of what it did for Jacob. And you'll see it as well. But like I said, there are a few bumps in the road, but it wouldn't be study abroad if you didn't have that. You're going to a different country, different culture. So yeah, embrace those bumps.
That's right. Yeah, I regularly tell students that something as life-changing as study abroad, I think necessarily should have some challenges. Right now, we've done a lot of work to smooth the path from start to finish, but in all honesty, to really gain everything out of study abroad, it really should challenge your students in a lot of new ways. And hopefully, we can get them prepared for it. That's our job. That's what we're here to do. That is our goal, is to prepare your students to be on study abroad, right? And to be successful academically, culturally, individually, whatever it is. That's what we're here to do. And really provide an opportunity for them to find themselves and really grow. Yeah.
But I think too, just one more thing for the parents is that be honest with your kid, that what do you want? What will make you feel safe for letting them, do this or allowing them to do it? What will make you feel safe? Do they need to call you when they arrive? I went through that a lot, that students wouldn't, initially call, and then they'd call me, and then I would call the study abroad advisor there. Are they there? But be honest with them about what you're feeling and how scared you are, and what you expect from them when they are abroad. Set some maybe times that, you could call or Skype or whatever the communication is. So, but just be upfront with your feelings.
And I think that's a great point. I think there was a question here. What were the bumps and challenges? Excuse me.
Do we have enough time?
Yeah, we don't have enough. No, I'm just kidding. But communication. I'll be honest, communication, students, when you go to college and university, you're out on your own, and there is this, there is some expectation that you are figuring things out for yourself. And I think it does lend itself to maybe not being the best communicator that you can be, right? And so establishing a communication plan, I think, is great. One thing I'll note, we live in a golden age of communication. It is so easy to keep in touch, right? But don't take that for granted, because we might think that we know how to communicate, and we might think that the entire globe is connected in all of these crazy new ways. But make sure that you know what that is, and that your students know what that is, right? I don't mean to throw parents under the bus here, but when I talk to students, I say, set a communication plan. And if you're using new technology, train mom and dad on new technology before you leave, right? So I would encourage you to do that. And we don't have to get so far down the road that we're all on TikTok, but things like WhatsApp or FaceTime or Facebook Messenger, like these, make sure you understand them. meet your students halfway, right? But set that communication plan, set those expectations early, and then just know that we can get in touch with your students if that is needed and at the time that is needed. Oh yeah, great detailed question here about cell phones. And I'll throw it out to my panelists if you have any advice or experience with cell phones. Newer cell phones these days, like the new good ones, those will work. You just swap out SIM cards when you get there. You can buy cell phones. The cool thing about most of the rest of the world, I know this is starting to come up more in the US, is just prepay. Like when I was in Australia, I did prepay, unlimited data, and it was like 20 bucks a month. And that was pre-smartphone, I will say that. But you know, they can work. But again, that'll be a good thing that's covered in pre-departure orientation. Communication tips, cell phone tips from my panelists out there. Anything you recommend?
Yeah, when my girls did the SIM cards, it worked like a charm, no problem. And then, you know, with Wi-Fi at a hotel or wherever they were staying, at places on institutions, yeah, WhatsApp and FaceTime were our golden ticket.
I'm just laughing listening to this because when I studied abroad, there were no cell phones. I lived on the 9th floor of a dorm, and I had to load my rotary phone with, you know, like prepaid at the bottom. So I'd run out of money on my phone, and then, you know, invariably that would be the day the elevator was not functioning, and I'd run down 9 flights of stairs, load it, run back up and make my phone call again. So I'm not sure that my personal experience can really help you too much at this point.
I'm with you on that, Harmony.
I think that's actually a good point. This is something I tell students all the time. You know, we are very dependent on our cell phones, right? Our little fancy pocket computers that we all carry now. And they do wonders for international travel. Like, I think it has revolutionized our ability to travel at all. But I tell students, don't be dependent, right? Know how to read a map, know how to make a phone call from a payphone, or know how to use one of those old phone cards. Don't assume that your cell phone is always working or, you know, be available to you. So, you know, I like that story, Harmony. And I think students should know how to use phone cards and rotary phones anyway, just in case. So we got maybe just about another, you know, say 5 to 7 minutes here. I want to be conscious of everybody's time. I think we've covered all the questions in the chat room. So I'd like to take this opportunity just to get like maybe last pieces of advice from our panelists. The one thing, as a parent who's had students on study abroad, parents who are thinking about sending students on study abroad, anything that you'd love to leave our audience with tonight?
I'll just share that I think like the majority of students that come back, my 2 daughters will say by far it's the best experience of their life, the most transformative. They would do it again in a heartbeat. They are ready to do it again. So it was truly an incredible experience for them.
I think that one of the things you could think about is, well, make sure that, you know, you as parents, one of you have a passport yourself, and hopefully, you know, you could travel over and visit at the end of the semester, especially, I think at the end of the semester, if, especially with language learning. I had parents that say their kid went to Spain. And so the parents would, at the end of the semester, after their language skills improved, the parents would go over and they would travel with their kid, and they were so impressed with their students, you know, language skills. So that's food for thought, you know, maybe, but I do recommend that someone in your family, besides students studying abroad, does have a passport.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Thank you for pointing that out. Sorry, Harmony, go ahead, please.
Oh, I was just going to say, you know, if your student is on the fence, if your student is, you know, if you can just sort of sense that they want to do it, but maybe they're scared or they're having a little bit of anxiety about making the decision, you know, be there, talk to them about it, help them through that. You know, for me, when I was trying to make the decision to go abroad my first time, which actually my very first study abroad was a 3-week program when I was in high school. So I was even younger than a college student. And I wanted to go so badly, but the thing that was causing me anxiety was missing this annual summer event that my family did every single year. And I really needed my parents to kind of help me remember that that event is there every year, and missing it one time to have a sort of once in a lifetime experience was worth it. If I hadn't had my parents kind of helping to support me in making that decision to make the leap, I might not have gone. And the thing that would have held me back was something that I actually did every single year and still do every single year of my life. And so I'm so grateful to them for sort of helping to push me forward into making the decision to go.
Looks like there's a couple questions in the chat that maybe we can just talk through a little bit.
Yeah.
That's great, because I was just typing and I'm like, this might be a lot longer than I.
Oh, then go ahead, Lindsay, if you've already got your thoughts ready for it.
No, I wanted to open it to everybody too. I mean, one of the questions was, how is money typically handled? What are recommendations? Credit cards? Should his daughter open an account? And so I just wanted to see, I think there's probably varying ideas of what works best, because I mean, when I was there, and this is dating me too, because I was in the time before cell phones too, but traveling internationally, like just how we have our, we're so hooked up with our phones and things. I mean, I found like I was just using my regular credit cards and debit cards as long as they had, the MasterCard or Visa logo on there. I would also withdraw money from an ATM machine that would accept my cards, and I would just kind of withdraw as much as I could at any one time and then work in cash. And so I personally did not open an account, but I know you said you did, Jacob, and sounds like maybe Harmony, you did too, but that wasn't something I did. And so I think that kind of a combination of all of those things is good and is great. Anybody else have anything else they want to add about what might be the best?
So this is, as I mentioned, I think before, this is one of the topics that we cover in pre-departure orientation, and your students' program will have some advice and some guidance, and your student study abroad coordinator will have some advice and guidance. So, what we're sharing right now is sort of broad, but if there's anything specific to the program or location that your student has chosen, that guidance will come both from the partner on the ground and from the study abroad coordinator for that program.
And finally, too, Mom, that was a great point you brought up earlier about our colleagues overseas. Most locations will also do an orientation when you arrive. And I know at my orientation, they covered banking and money and just like the cultural approach to money. Is it more cash-based economy, more credit card-based economy? If you go to a store, what is it they're going to expect of you? And what is it that they legally have to accept? It might be an all cash society, but if you show up with a credit card, they have to take it, right? And so that's something that our partners on the ground overseas will also go over during an arrival orientation as well. And I'll just note for the money stuff, diversity is your friend, right? Having multiple options to cover multiple things and prepare for multiple situations. So having a credit card, having a debit card, having cash, keeping them separate, keeping them safe, not walking around with everything all in your wallet or all in your pocket, right? So for me, the best piece of advice for banking and money is diversify so that there's always something that they have available to them to get through any situation. And I'll say to the last question there, our pre-departure orientation is where your student will meet the other students that are going on their program, and even other students going on study abroad. So that's a great opportunity. Your student should be, can ask the coordinator to introduce them to the rest of the group too. But we know regularly students set up WhatsApp groups or Facebook messages with themselves before they leave, coordinating travel and arrival together and things like that. So, and then the living situation, again, will vary program to program, but your student will have a place where they're going, right? Whatever that program provides, that will be set in advance. They will know what their housing options are. And it may be, we have a couple of programs, I think, where it's just one option, but that'll be made clear to the student what that is. And yeah, oh, a great question we haven't brought. We've talked about pre-departure orientation, but this happens at the end of the semester as we prepare for the next semester, right? Right before, within, I don't know, probably like a month or maybe even two before that goes. And your student, that's a requirement of their study abroad application. So it'll be made very clear to them when it is, what's required of them, and when it's due. Excellent. Well, I know we're just about out of time. I want to take these last 2 minutes just to thank my panelists for being here. This has been a great session. This is somewhat of a newer session that we're offering. I think our participation rate tonight shows that we need to offer more of these parent information sessions. So I think, you know, we'll look to the future to see if we can't have some of those. This information session was recorded. We will have it posted up on studyabroadfair.arizona.edu or on our U of A Study Abroad YouTube channel within the next week here. So those will definitely be there for you to review. Thank you to my audience. I hope that this was helpful. I hope this helps prepare you to support your students as they think about doing study abroad. We are here to help. They can come talk to us at any time, any question, you know, big or small. We want to make sure that your students feel very good about their study abroad. But we also want to make sure that we know that you are a huge resource and ally to your student. You're in their lives and you care about them. We know that, as you can see, we have parents here on our panelists or for our panel. And so hopefully this helps kind of clear up some things or makes you, but if you're not, talk to your student, right? Get those questions answered. Communication is always key. And hopefully we can keep those communication lines open so that everybody feels good about studying. And with that, I think we'll go ahead and shut down this. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. If you've come to U of A for family weekend, welcome to campus. I hope you love Tucson. If you happen to be around, Party at Global is kicking off right now. We're here at the Global Center on Park Avenue between University Avenue and 6th. So if you happen to be on campus, stop on by. And I hope you all have a great rest of your evening and your weekend.